in your own culture should not be left behind. What is eminent in your own lifestyle should not be left behind.
Whatever the circumstances, Sanyang is still beyond compare for many people going the extra mile to secure a wonderfully amusing break on the Smiling Coast. That's all there is on this edition of the expedition. Join us next week at the same time as we continue our tour and sojourn of coastal towns marking the Atlantic seaboard of the Smiling Coast. Don't forget, you can catch up with this program and many more on our website on www.grts.gm. Until then, enjoy the rest of our programs. You're not scared of the reptile behind you?
Yeah, a little bit,
Did you touch it?
I did.
Let me see you touch it again.
No.
Hi, I'm Penny, on vacation in the Gambia, and this program is brought to you by...
It's a warm welcome from GRTS and wherever you may be. This is the news at 10. First, our headlines. The Commonwealth team that observed the November 24th presidential election said the race was free, open, transparent, and devoid of violence and intimidation. Government condemns the ECOWAS Commission President's decision not to dispatch a team to observe the recent presidential election in the strongest possible terms. Thousands of Egyptians defy calls by activists to boycott the ongoing parliamentary elections, which set the transition to democracy in motion. And supporters of the Bashar al-Assad regime, angered by the Arab League's suspension of Syria, stormed the streets of the capital, Damascus. These and other stories coming ahead this hour. My name is Farmer Fofana. The government of the Republic of the Gambia hereby draws the attention to a press release from the Commission of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, dated 22nd November 2011. A media dispatch from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation and Gambians Abroad reveals that the press release in question contains a statement issued by the President of the ECOWAS Commission, His Excellency Mr. James Victor Beho, regarding the 24th November 2011 presidential election in the Gambia, detailing decision of the latter not to dispatch an ECOWAS observer mission to the Gambia for the elections, given that preparations for the race and the political environment in the run-up to the said election were adjudged by the Commission not to be conducive for the conduct of free, fair and transparent polls, even before the election was held. The government of the Republic of the Gambia and as a member state of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, the release adds, hereby informs all member states of the community in particular and the larger international community by extension that the government of the Gambia is utterly dismayed by and condemns in the strongest unequivocal terms the unilateral decision of His Excellency Mr. Beho not to dispatch an observer mission to the Gambia for the election. The government of the Gambia, the dispatch states, is of the opinion that the said decision, though taken under discretionary powers vested in the passing of the Commission President, was subjective and was not in any way and under any given circumstance reflective of the prevailing political environment in the Gambia prior to the polls. In fact, the course of action taken by His Excellency Mr. Beho tantamounts to inciting the Gambian people on the eve of the elections, which is a full contradiction of the principles and ideals of democracy and good governance, as well as the objectives of the ECOWAS protocol relating to the mechanism for conflict prevention, management, resolution, peacekeeping and security. The dispatch states, furthermore, the government of the Republic of the Gambia hereby denounces the sentimental misgivings about the Gambia and its people on the part of His Excellency Mr. Beho, which has in no small measure culminated in the decision taken by the same token. The relevant Gambian authorities frown on the lack of coherence and the unfair treatment that the country has been subjected to as a result of the decision relayed via the press release. The media release goes on to say the basis of denunciation is as follows. First, leaning on Article 13 of the ECOWAS Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance, the President of the Commission, His Excellency Mr. James Victor Beho, sent a fact-finding mission to the Gambia to collate the relevant data for the appraisal of the situation in the country and the extent of preparations for the elections. The mission, according to the release, was well received by Gambian authorities and it enjoyed the full cooperation of all the stakeholders in the electoral process. However, it notes, and alarmingly for that matter, it laments the government of the Gambia was not provided with a report of the fact-finding mission for appraisal and response, even though His Excellency Mr. Beho claims to have taken the decision relayed via the press release on the basis of the contents of the report. Clear conscience, impartiality, and fair play, the release argues, would have dictated that the government of the Gambia be allowed to transmit its views on the report of the fact-finding mission prior to the issuance of the release. Deviating from this internationally accepted norm, the dispatch arts has indicated ulterior motives on the part of the President of the ECOWAS Commission. Secondly, albeit the fact that the press release has indicated that His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia has been informed of the decision of Mr. Beho on the dispatch of an observer mission to the Gambia for the election. The letter to that effect was deliberately transmitted late via diplomatic channels on the afternoon before the polls in the Gambia. It notes this. The news release stresses clearly contravenes the tenets of good diplomatic practice, and the government of the Gambia strongly deplores the act. Thirdly, the government of the Gambia considers the issues raised in the press release from the ECOWAS Commission as lacking credibility for the simple fact that the diplomatic corps in the country conducted exercises similar to the one conducted by the ECOWAS team prior to the elections, but notes that the irony is that there were no pronouncements from the former along the lines taken by the press release, and in actual fact, and seizing the opportunity as it presents itself, the release states, the international community through the UN, AU, OIC, the Commonwealth, and the diplomatic representatives present in the Gambia reported that the presidential election of the 24th November 2011 was peaceful, transparent, free, and fair. These pronouncements contradict those issued by His Excellency Mr. Beho, hence putting a huge shadow of doubt on his proclamations. The government of the Republic of the Gambia wishes to reassure member states of the Economic Community of the West African State, ECOWAS, and the international community that it has always been and remains committed to the notion of people's liberty of choice in electing their leaders on the basis of social contract, and will also continue to advocate for and adhere to the principles of democracy and good governance for sustainable development. Furthermore, the government of the Gambia will exert all efforts to ensure that such an unfortunate unilateral action by ECOWAS Commission is not repeated to the detriment of the democratic aspirations of ECOWAS member states. That government of the Republic of the Gambia will therefore seize this opportunity to reiterate its full and unwavering commitment to the ideals and principles of the Economic Community of West African States, and in so doing, reassure and engage all member states to further harness and reinforce cooperation among and within the sub-regional communities so that the noble aspirations of the founding fathers can be fully achieved. It concludes. The team of election observers dispatched by the Commonwealth to monitor the November 24th presidential election on Monday called on His Excellency the President, Sir Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya Jammeh. This after giving the conduct of the race a clean bill of health. The team, led by Nigeria's former Foreign Minister, Professor Bolaj Akiemi, noted that the presidential race took place in a free, open, and transparent manner without any incidents of violence and intimidation. Abdunjai reports.
The team arrived in the country well before the campaign period. They stayed on to watch the political maneuver at the start of the presidential race and have scrutinized every single detail of the process on polling day. And 5 days after the conduct of the election, the team has sounded its opinion on what it made out of the whole process.
We got there about 6:30 in the morning, and Mr. President, you should have seen the queue at 7 police stations in just around that compound. I mean, I thought if I was blaming him for getting me out of bed too early, I said, look, we will get that there'll be nobody there. When we got there and we saw, this was a spontaneous outpouring of enthusiasm. We didn't see any government officials putting pressure on anybody, none whatsoever. They queued patiently, they showed enthusiasm. Mr. President, I think you should ask the men why there were more women on the queue. I asked the women, why were they more on the queue than the men? And the women said, because they were enthusiastic about the experiment. So my brother, the foreign minister, have been teasing him since then that, you know, more women turned up to vote at the election. It was very peaceful, no violence. And, Mr. President, You must take credit for this.